Hi everyone, it's Kelly here from Craftandacuppa, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make the Granny Peplum. This has turned into my favourite design at the minute. You can make so many different things from it. You can do a peplum top, a dress, you can have short sleeves, long sleeves, ruffles on the sleeves, no ruffles on the sleeves, whatever you wish. I'm going to be doing a sleeveless Granny Peplum today. And again, as always, it's made to measure, so you can use any yarn and any hook, although I do recommend DK because that's what I've based the yarn yardage on, but you can still use whatever you want. I don't like to say the word too early, so don't frown at me please, but I'm already planning on making a Christmas version out of chunky acrylic. If I whisper it, I never said it, yeah? Should we say that? Right, so yeah, made to measure. You can use any yarn, any hook. Today I am using Sadar Stories. I've never tried it before, so I'm quite excited to have a play around with it. I got this from the Wool Factory, and I'll pop a little link for their website in the written description. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that. I'm just sharing some love for a UK yarn company, okay? So I have got double knitting yarn, and I have got a 5mm hook. I don't know why, but I think it's my favourite. I just love working with a 5mm and DK. If you use DK, like I say, you can use a 4mm, 4.5, 3.5, whatever you want. It's absolutely fine, doesn't matter. Some stitch markers, gonna need some of those. Tape measure to measure your garment as you're working through the pattern. Little needle for weaving in those ends that we all love so much, and a pair of scissors. And I've also got my trusty wool genie. There's a link for that as well. You don't have to have a wool genie, but I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So I think that's about all I've got to mention, possibly. Oh yeah, actually, hang on. It's written in US terms. I say written. I'm making it in US terms because that's how I learned, and yeah, so I do US terms. There was one more thing. Yeah, the sizes, extra small all the way up to 5XL. So, right. There's also a written PDF file for this. It's going to be available on Ravelry, Etsy and Lovecrafts. So, thank you all. Let's crack on. Okay, so I did forget to mention one thing. I knew that I would. Basically, all the measurements that you're going to be working towards are in the written description underneath the video. If you're using a phone, if you look to the bottom right under the video, there should be like an upside down V. I think it might be in line with the title of the video. So if you click on that, that's going to bring up all the measurements that you need to work towards. So what we're going to do is you're going to have to click on that now if you're using your phone or on the computer, and you're going to need the measurement for a width of 1 granny square. Okay, so we're going to be making 2 granny squares, and I'm making a size small, and it says the width of a granny square for me is 25 centimeters. So I'm going to aim for 25 centimeters with my granny square. I might not hit the exact measurement. That is absolutely fine if you're a centimetre out or so. Don't panic, it's absolutely fine, okay? It doesn't matter if you're out just a little bit. So yeah, we're all using different yarns, we're all probably using different hooks, we all crochet differently, your tension might change. Don't worry about it, okay? It's absolutely fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to make 2 granny squares. Let me just get my yarn on my hook ready to go. So we're going to chain 4, and you're going to come back to your first chain and put a slip stitch into that chain to create a loop. You've got a little hole right in the centre. We're going to be working into that hole. So you need to chain 3, and that will class as your first double crochet. And then we're going to put 2 double crochets into the centre of the loop. And and then we're going to chain 2. Now we're going to put 3 double crochets into the center of the loop. Chain 2. Then we're going to put 3 more double crochets back into the center of the loop. Chain 2. We need to do this 4 times. So these are called granny clusters. Well, that's what I call them. Other people might call them something else. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to call them granny clusters. I've got 3 at the minute. 1, 2, 3. And we need 4. So I've just done my chain 2. I'm going to put 3 more double crochets back into this loop. And then I'm going to chain 2. And then I'm going to join it up to the 3rd chain from the chain 3 that we made at the beginning of the round. So I'm going to go in that top chain, chain number 3, and I'm going to do a slip stitch. And that's just joined my square together. I'm just going to take my little end from the center and pull on that, make that a bit tighter. And you've got a super cute little square. So I'm going to stick with the same colour for the next round to show you what to do if you want to stay with the same colour. If you want to change your colour, you are going to fasten off, snip, pull it into a knot, fasten off. You're going to turn your work so that your stitches are facing the wrong way, and you're going to go in any corner, doesn't matter which one, and you're just going to join in your new colour with a slip stitch, and then you're ready to go for round 2. Now I'm going to stick with the same colour. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. We're going to turn our work after every round, you see, and that helps your granny square stay nice and straight. If we kept going round and round and round, it would start to slant. I don't know if you've seen any granny squares that kind of don't quite sit quite well. They're quite slanted. That's why you're going to need to turn your work after every round, and if you're changing colour, go in a different corner to where you fastened off, because that all helps as well. Right, so what I'm going to do, because I'm staying with the same colour, I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to slip stitch straight back into this corner, and that's it, I'm ready to go. Right, round 2, I'm going to chain 3 and put 2 double crochets back into this corner. Now what we're going to do is skip over these 3 double crochets and go straight into the next corner. And we're going to put 3 double crochets. And then we're going to chain 2. And then we're going to put 3 double crochets back into that corner again. With, 3 double crochets, and that has made another corner. That's just carrying on the corner. I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. Skip over 3 double crochets and go straight into the next corner with 3 double crochets. Chain 2 and then put 3 double crochets back into that same corner. And then we're ready to go again. Skip over the next 3 double crochets and go straight into the next corner with 3 double crochets. Chain 2 and then put 3 double crochets back in the same corner. Right, we're on the last bit now. We're going to skip over the 3 double crochets and we're coming to the last corner. Now we've already got 3 double crochets in there. One is the chain 3, which we class as a double crochet, and then you've got 2 double crochets. So we just need to finish this corner. So we're going to place 3 double crochets in this corner chain space. and then we're going to chain 2, and then we are going to join our square by going into the 3rd chain from the chain 3 at the beginning of the round. Go straight through that chain, the 3rd chain, and join it with a slip stitch. And that is 2 rounds of your granny square. Right, I'm going to fasten off because I want to change colour. If you're staying with the same colour, let me just quickly show you what you're going to do again, just in case you've forgotten. You're just going to turn your work and you're going to slip stitch straight back into that corner chain space, and then you are ready to start your round 3. Now I'm going to undo that though because I am changing colour. Just loosen that a bit, there we go. So I'm going to fasten off. Like so. Now another little tip that I like to do is I like to make both my squares at the same time. And that is a very handy thing to do if you're using scraps, like scrap yarn, and you want both your squares to be the same colours, because you can look and think, yeah, I can do both mine. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. Also helps to keep the squares the same sort of tension because you're just working on each one, going back and forth. Some people do one square completely, then they go to the next one and it's come out smaller even though you've got the same amount of stitches because their tension's changed. So I just find it keeps it in unison a bit. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to make this again, and I'll meet you back here when I've got 2 little squares. Okay, so I now have 2 squares started off with 2 rounds. I'm now going to change colour for round 3. So I'm going to move one of these out of the way. Grab this one. Again, I'm going to turn my work. This is my stitches. The last round is facing me, so I'm going to turn it round. I'm going to go in the opposite corner. Doesn't matter which corner, I could go in any of them, but I've just decided I'm going to go in the opposite one. Make sure you don't go in the centre gaps. Make sure you go in a corner if you're changing colour. Always in the corner. Okay, right. I'm going to join my yarn in with a slip stitch. And then we're ready to go again. So we're going to chain 3 and put 2 double crochets back into the corner chain space. Skip over the next 3 double crochets and go into this centre gap with 3 double crochets. Skip over the next 3 double crochets and go into the centre, oh no, it's not centre, the corner chain space with 3 double crochets. Chain 2 and then 3 more double crochets back in the same corner. Next we're going to skip over the next 3 double crochets and go into the centre gap with 3 double crochets. Skip over the next 3 double crochets and go into the corner chain space with 3 double crochets. Chain 2, 3 more double crochets back in that same corner. And then do exactly the same thing again. Skip over the next 3 double crochets and go into the next gap in the centre with 3 double crochets. Skip over the next 3 double crochets and go into the corner chain space with 3 double crochets. Chain 2, 3 more double crochets back into that corner chain space. And then we're on the last bit, so we're going to skip over 3 double crochets, go again in that centre gap with 3 double crochets. Skip over the last 3 double crochets, which brings you to the final corner chain space, which has already got your 3 doubles from the beginning. So put your 3 more doubles back into that final corner chain space, chain 2, and then join to the top of the chain 3 with a slip stitch. And that's round 3. I'm changing colour again. Remember, if you're sticking with the same one, you're just going to turn your work and slip stitch back into that gap, and then you're ready to go. But I'm giving myself loads of ends, as I always do, but it is worth it. I say that all the time. It is worth it. Right, I'm going to snip my end off. I'm going to show you a tip as well. I show it in all my videos when I'm doing granny squares, because I do think it's quite a good tip. If you're going to be changing colours all the time, you're going to end up with lots of ends. Now, either you don't mind, you can leave them. If you don't mind doing them all in one hit. For me, I'm just like, oh, I can't do it. I have to weave my ends as I go. Otherwise, I think I'd probably cry. And I'm being deadly serious. I am being deadly serious. Right, so my tip, anyway, whether you're weaving your ends in or not, is I always leave the centre tail. This one hanging here, I leave that. I don't touch that one. And so then what I do is I weave all my ends on this side only, so that you know that the one with the tail hanging out at the centre is going to be the wrong side of your top, and all the ends are going to be weaved in on that side only. Before, I used to weave all of them in, then I'd be making my square thinking, I can't figure out what side I've been weaving ends in. So I'd end up weaving them all over the place, and then they'd poke out, and I'd be like, what have I done? And then one day I thought, hang on, if I just leave this one here, then I can weave them all on this side. So I am actually going to weave this single end in right now. Well, when I pause the video, I'm going to weave that in. That's going to be gone. And then I'm going to add another round to my second square, and I'm going to meet you back here for round 4. Right, I've now got my 2 granny squares up to round 3. I'm now changing colour for round 4. Just move one out the way, move my scissors, attach my new yarn. Remember to turn your work after every round. So I'm turning my work, I'm going to go in a different corner and join in with a slip stitch. Chain 3, 2 double crochets back into the same corner. Skip the next 3 double crochets and go in the gap in between with 3 double crochets. Skip the next 3 double crochets and go in the gap in between with 3 double crochets. Skip the next 3 double crochets and go straight into the corner chain space with 3 double crochets. Chain 2, 3 more double crochets back into the same corner chain space. And then just keep repeating this same thing all the way around. Skip 3 doubles, 3 doubles in the next gap. Skip 3 doubles, 3 doubles in the next gap. Skip 3 doubles, and then you're into the corner. 3 double crochets in the corner chain space. Chain 2, 3 double crochets back into the same corner chain space. And there we go, we're going again. Skip 3 doubles, 3 doubles in the next gap. Skip 3 doubles, 3 doubles in the next gap. Skip 3 doubles and we're back to the next corner. 3 double crochets in that corner chain space. Chain 2, 3 double crochets back into the same corner. And then we're on the final part, so we're going to skip 3 doubles in the next gap, skip 3 doubles in the next gap, and then that brings you to the final corner. So we're going to skip 3 doubles and go in your final corner with 3 double crochets. Oh, I've lost it. Where's it gone? Chain 2 and join to the top of chain 3 with a slip stitch. And that's round 4. I'm changing colour again. So I'm going to be fastening off. Remember, if you are sticking with the same colour, hopefully you've got it by now, turn your work and slip stitch back into the corner chain space. So easy. So easy. So I'm going to snip off, I am. So basically that round that we just did, round 4, we're going to repeat in that all the way around your square until you reach the measurement of the width of a granny square. For both of them, remember you're making 2, not just 1. Don't you make 1 and go, ah yes, I'm on the next part. Oh no, I'm not, I've got to make 1 more. I was going to show you how we're going to be measuring the square. Trying to find the side with least ends, but they're all a bit crazy at the minute, aren't they? When you're measuring your square, you're going to measure either straight across the centre, or if you prefer to go straight down, just make sure you're going through the centre and not on the edges, because as your square starts to get a bit bigger, sometimes the edges feel like they flare out a little bit more. So to get the correct measurement, you're going straight through the centre. Okay, so at the minute I've got ages to go. Well, I haven't got ages to go, not really. I'm on 10. Mine's at 10 centimetres. So yeah, I've got to get to around about 25. Like I say, it doesn't matter if I'm a bit under, if I hit 24, if I hit 26, it doesn't matter, okay? As long as we're near that number, that's the main thing. So I'm going to add a round to my second square. I'm going to keep adding rounds until I get to my finished width of a granny square. And I'll meet you back here when you have got both your squares to the right measurement for the size that you are working towards. Okay, see you soon. Okay, I've got my 2 granny squares. You may notice that they're a bit of a different colour to when I first started, because I was doing rainbow. Then I weren't feeling it for some reason. So I had to change it. You know what it's like. If you're not feeling it, you just got to change it. So I went ahead and did that, and now I'm really happy. I've just mixed the colours up and I'm really happy with how it's looking. So we've got 2 granny squares. I'm just going to push one to one side and I'm just going to check the measurement of my square. Now I'm doing a small, and that said I needed to be around about 25 centimetres. So you remember you're measuring either across the width. I'm bang on 25. That never happens to me. If you've just under or just over your measurement, don't worry, it does not matter. Honestly, it really does not matter, because we're now about to start adding width anyway. And then when it comes to assembling and you try it on, you think, oh, it looks like it's a bit small, it's a bit short, then you can add extra length to it. This pattern is so adaptable, especially if you're making it for yourself. Very adaptable, okay? So I'm making a size small. Mine's 25 centimetres, which is spot on. The next thing we're going to be doing, like I just said, is adding width to both of our squares, because we want them to become wider, not all the way around, longer, wider, longer, wider. We just want them to become wider. So the last round of my stitches are currently facing me. To keep with the turning of our work, I'm going to turn it so that the wrong side are facing me. Don't know if you've been weaving your ends in as well. Look, I've left my little tail in the centre. So this is my wrong side actually. It's going to be the inside of my garment. Right, let me get my yarn. So we're just going to be working on the opposite sides of the square only. Doesn't matter which side you go for. I'm just going to start working on this side, and then I'm going to start working on this side, and we're just going to be doing rows of the granny stitch. And now what you need to find is the measurement in the written description for adding width. Mine, as I said before, I'm doing a size small, and mine says around about 7.5 centimeters. So I need to add about 7.5 centimeters on each side, but we need to make sure that we are adding an even number of rows on to each side, not odd. So again, if you can't get to the exact measurement, because you're probably not going to be able to, don't worry, it does not matter. There is give and take in the measurements, okay? So it does not matter, but we need to make sure we have an even number of rows, not stitches, even number of rows on each side, okay? So I need to aim for 7.5 centimeters on each side for a size small, and an even number of rows. So just going to go into the corner chain space and join the yarn with a slip stitch, and then we're going to chain 3 and place one more double crochet in that corner chain space. Then we're going to carry on our normal stitch pattern of skipping 3 doubles and putting 3 doubles in the gap. Skip 3 doubles in the gap, skip 3 doubles in the gap. We're going to do that all the way along this row. Keep going all the way along. Just doing the normal stitch pattern, the granny stitch. Oh, I've just come out there. Right, I'm in my final gap, placing my 3 double crochets, and then I've got 3 doubles left, and then the next corner chain space. So you're going to skip over your last 3 doubles, and in that corner chain space you're going to place just 2 double crochets. Just 2, okay? So you started with 2, although that's your chain 3, we class that as the double, and 1 double in there. So you're going to have 2 for row 1, 2 at each end, 2 doubles, not 3, 2. This is for row 1. Now if you was to continue using the same colour, I am not going to do that, so I'm just going to show you what to do, then I'm going to undo mine. You just chain 3 and turn your work, and then you're ready for row 2. But I'm changing colour, giving myself loads of ends as per usual. I'm going to change colour by adding my yarn into my final stitch. So what colour do I need next? I need purple. Just get that onto here. Get my yarn ready. Right, so I've only got 1 double back in this corner chain space now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my stitch and I'm going to finish it with my new colour. So I'm going to start it with the old colour, which is red. I'm going to go in with my double and I'm going to pull my yarn through my 2 loops, and then I'm going to drop my yarn. I've just gone and lost my other bit. Where's it gone? Over here. I'm going to hook this over my hook, literally hook this over my hook, and I'm going to pull that through the last 2 stitches and finish it off with the new colour. Right, so I'm going to chain 3, turn my work. We've got 1 double crochet here. You've got this one, you've got 2 actually, but we're on top of the first one. You've got 1 double crochet, skip over that 1 double crochet and go in the next gap with 3 double crochets. So row 2 is going to have 1 double crochet at each end. Row 1 has 2, row 2 has 1. Right, we're going to skip over the next 3 doubles and put 3 doubles back in the gap. We're going to keep doing our normal stitch pattern of the granny stitch, skipping over 3, putting 3 in the gap. Like so, all the way across, just doing the granny stitch. Skip 3 doubles in the gap. I'm certain you know the drill by now, seeing as you've just made 2 probably absolutely delightful looking granny squares. How can they look anything less a granny square? I love them so much. Get in there. Oh, my yarn's got stuck somehow. What is it doing? Oh, it's got caught under my red yarn. It's just kind of hanging around. I need to snip that off my other end. I'll do that in a second though. Okay, so I have now got 3 doubles and my last gap, and then 2 doubles at the end. I'm going to skip over my 3 doubles and place 3 doubles in that last gap. That then leaves me with 2 doubles, although really it's a double and it's the chain 3 from the previous round. I'm going to skip over the next double crochet and I'm going to place a double crochet right in the top of the chain 3 from the previous round. And I say round, sorry, I'm getting confused. Row, because we're doing rows now, not rounds. And there we go, we've got 2 extra rows added. And now what we're going to do is keep repeating row 1 and row 2. Row 1, row 2, row 1, row 2. Row 1 has 2 doubles at each end. Row 2 has 1 double at each end. Row 3 is going to have 2. Row 4 is going to have 1. I'm going to keep doing it with you. I'm not just going to disappear and go, right, go on, off you go. We're going to do some more. Ah, I need to snip my purple off then. I need to snip my red, don't I? Because I've changed colour by using, by finishing my last stitch with the new colour. So I'm still attached to the red at the minute. So let's just snip the red off. This is personal preference, but I like to put a little knot in mine. Some people say weave your ends in really, really well. Like to me, I'm like, oh no, I need a little bit of security. So I'm going to put a little double knot in mine. I don't want to pull too tight because it might make my stitches go a bit funky. There we go. Okay, so that's 2 rows. What colour am I next? Yellow. Now I'm going to have to undo my last stitch. Come here, yarn. Look, that's trying to disappear on me again. I'm going to have to undo my last stitch because I'm changing colour. But I just want to show you that it has 1 double crochet as the last stitch. Right, I'm going to change colour. So I'm going to finish my stitch with the new colour. So it's just 1 double at the end. Let me grab my new colour and pull it through. Lovely old job. Right, now we're going to chain 3 and turn. And now I'm going to place a double crochet back into the same stitch as the chain 3. So we've got our 2 doubles, technically speaking, at the beginning of the row. You said round again. Then we've got 3 double crochets here, so we're going to skip over them and go in the next gap with 3 double crochets. Skip over the next 3 doubles and put 3 doubles in the gap. Skip over the next 3 doubles in the gap, next gap, and then keep doing the granny stitch all the way across. Keep going, nearly there. This is where I end up with loads of ends. But it's like I say it all the time, it is worth it. Right, and now I'm going in my last gap with 3 double crochets. I've not finished my round yet, but I'm just going to go back and snip off my purple where I've changed colour. Otherwise I'm going to be attached to yarn all over the place. I'm just going to secure it with a little knot. There we go. I was going to get my next colour ready, which is this one. Okay, so what we're left with at the end of this row is 3 double crochets and then a little tiny gap, and then you chain 3 from the previous round, your turning chain. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip over these 3 double crochets. We're going to go straight in the top of the chain 3. No, we're not quite picked up both the stitches. And we're going to place 2 double crochets in that final stitch, the top of the chain 3 from the previous row. Oh, hang on, that is what we're doing, but I'm changing colour, aren't I? So let me just undo my final stitch, just to be super confusing. So I've placed 1 double crochet in there so far. I need to place 1 more, so we end the row with 2 doubles together. Then we pick up my new colour and pull that through. There we go. And then chain 3. This is the row where we only have 1 double crochet at each end. So I've got 1 double crochet here. I'm just going to skip that and go into the next gap with 3 double crochets. And then do your normal stitch pattern of skip 3 and 3 double crochets in the next gap. And keep repeating that all the way across the row. Oh no, I've picked up a stitch from the previous row. Don't you hate when that happens? You kind of like push it down a bit as if to say, don't stick out for all eternity. It's easy done, easy done. I'm forever getting my crochet stuck on door handles, but I am getting more aware that when I am wearing crochet, to give myself a wide berth. But it does still happen. You're like, no! I remember getting a picture of one of my hexagon cardigans. Literally, first time I'd pretty much worn it, to get a picture, and I caught it on the door handle. and it's left a pulled a stitch out. I don't know how to fix that. Like, I just don't know how to fix it. It's pulled like a stitch. It's not pulled it out, but it's made like a little loop in it. Oh, I've not even worn this out yet. Okay, so I'm all the way across my row. I've just got 3 doubles and 1 gap left and 2 doubles then. So I'm going to go in the final gap with 3 double crochets. And then it'll be 1 double crochet in the top of the chain 3 from the previous row. So you've got 2 doubles, well, you got a double in your chain 3, skip that double and go in the top of the chain 3 from the previous row. I know I'm changing colour, but I am just going to finish this stitch in this colour because I'm going to now check my measurements to see where I'm at. I've done 4 rows. I've added 4 extra rows from red onwards, and I need to get to 7.5 centimetres roughly. It's going to be roughly because, like I say, we need to have an even number of rows added. I'm up to 4, so if my measurement isn't quite right, I might have to go up to 6. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, look, from red. I say, look, you probably can't read it from there, but let's kind of. I'm at 4.5, so yeah, 6 might be my limit. I'm gonna have to do 2 more at least anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna add 2 more extra rows and I'll meet you back here. So just remember what we're doing. We're just repeating row 1 and 2, 1 and 2. But row 1 has 2 doubles at each end. Row 2 has 1 double at each end. Row 3 has 2, row 4 has 1, row 5 will have 2, row 6 will have 1. And if you're confused, rewind the video and have another little look. Once you get the hang of it, you're like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. It just helps you to keep a nice straight edge. So I'll see you back in a minute when I've got 2 more extra. It might be 2, maybe it might be 4, but I think I'm going to need about 6. So remember, you need an even number of rows. I'll meet you back here in a minute. Okay, so I am now up to 6 rows. Let me just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's my even amount of rows. I need to get to roughly around about 7.5 centimetres. So mine starts from the red. Still measure from the centre rather than the edge. I'll go from there. I am at 7 centimetres. Now I'm going to leave it at that because if I then add 2 more rows, I'm probably going to be about 9 centimetres. So I'd rather be half a centimetre away than 2.5 centimetres. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to fasten off. Like so. I'm going to weave my ends in as well. Can't leave them dangling there. So what you're going to do now is you're going to do the exact, oh hang on, am I still attached? Ah, I've still got yarn attached. Hang on, let me just snip this off. And tie a little knot. Hang on. Soz everyone. Getting a bit ahead of myself. Okay, so I've been working from this side, haven't I? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to weave my ends in first. But let's just pretend we're moving on to the next part of the pattern and that you're not a control freak over the ends like I am. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing as what we've done here on this side. Okay, I'm basically just going to flip this over because I've been working I started with my round from the square with the stitches facing away from me. So I'm literally just going to flip it. I'm now going to be working the exact same way that I did the first one. I'm going to be joining in this corner here and just going up and down, exactly the same as what we just did for the first side, adding the exact amount of rows. So for me, that's 6. Remember, it has to be an even number of rows, not odd. You need an even number, okay? So I will meet you back here when you've done the whole width. Well, I say for one square you have to do this exact same thing for both of your squares. So you're going to turn both your squares into rectangles, okay? So I'll meet you back here when you have two rectangles. Right, I am back again. I've only done one rectangle so far, but I just want to show you this is what I've done. I've added the same amount of rows on each side. I'm now going to take my next square and I'm going to do the exact same thing as what I've just done. I'm going to add the same amount of rows on the opposite side. So for me it ended up being 6. For you it could be a completely different number. Also it depends what size you're making, what yarn you're using, what hook you're using. So don't worry if you haven't got 6. That was just my number. You'll have your own personal number of rows. But remember, it's got to be even, not odd. So I'm now going to do the exact same thing to this, so that I now have 2 granny rectangles instead of 2 granny squares. And I'll meet you back here for the next part once I've done this. Right, hopefully you should now have 2 rectangles. What we're going to do now is we're going to turn one into your front panel and the other one into the back panel. So we're going to do the front panel first. So I'm going to put one to one side because we only need this one. This is where we need our tape measure. So now you need to have a look in the written description underneath the video and find the measurement for your size for the neckline shaping. Now I'm doing a small, mine says about 12 centimeters. So we're going to get your tape measure. Going to need 2 stitch markers. And what we're going to do is we're going to measure along the top edge on one of your, I'm going to call it a square then. It kind of is a square still, but a rectangle, isn't it? On the rectangle. So we're going to measure across the top edge. So small, 12 centimeters. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a stitch marker and we're going to put it in the gap which is closest to that measurement. If it falls in the middle, of your granny cluster, rather than going towards the neckline, go away from the neckline. Okay, mine's all right because it falls pretty much in this gap right here. So I'm just going to put my finger there, pop a stitch marker in there. I don't need to use my tape measure again now because I just need to do the exact same thing for the other side. So I'm going to count from my original square, and I have got the corner chain space, 1 gap, and then I've got to place my stitch marker. So corner chain space, 1 gap, place the stitch marker. And now what we're going to do is rows of granny stitch, just like we've done down this side and this side. But instead we're going to go back and forth from the stitch marker and on this side as well. And then you'll have a section here and a section here, and then that will leave you with a bit of neckline. So we're going to go up about 8 centimeters. This one doesn't matter if it's odd or even, it can work either way. So I need my yarn. And my hook. Now my last round of my granny square, the stitches are facing me. So what I'm going to do is turn my work and I'm going to go from this side, my wrong side, and start from there to keep in with the same pattern of what I've been doing where I've been turning my work each time. So this is exactly the same as adding the rows. But you're going to be working into some, I normally call them DC bars, double crochet bars, because they're on the side, aren't they? So we're going to be working around those until we get to the granny square. and this is why you needed an even number of rows down this side, otherwise you wouldn't be able to fit your granny stitch pattern in very well. Right, let's pick up my work. I'm going to go around this first DC bar with a slip stitch to join in my yarn, and then I'm going to chain 3, and I'm going to do another double crochet around that DC bar. So exactly the same as the rows we've just been doing, where the first one has 2 double crochets at the beginning and end, and the next row has 1. Now I'm coming up to my next DC bar. I'm going to skip that and I'm going to go around the next DC bar with 3 double crochets. Again, skip the next DC bar, go around the next one with 3 double crochets. You're going to keep doing that, skipping DC bars and going around the next one until you reach the original granny square, which is where I'm at now. I've got 1 more DC bar to skip, and then I'm back into that corner chain space of the original granny square. So I'm skipping over my next DC bar, going in the corner chain space of the original granny square with my 3 double crochets. And then I'm back to the regular stitch pattern now, where you skip 3 and you put 3 in the gap. Keep doing that until you reach the gap with your stitch marker, which is where I'm at now. So I'm going to end the row with just 2 double crochets, not 3, just 2. So 2 double crochets in the same gap as the stitch marker. Oh, hang on, let me just undo my last one because I'm changing colour, aren't I? I'm going to finish my row, my final stitch, with my new colour, which is purple. Right, so I'm changing colour. Let me grab my new colour. Right, so the second row, just the same as what we've been doing before. Chain 3, turn your work, and then you're going to skip the next double crochet and put 3 double crochets in that gap, in the first gap. Skip 3, 3 in the gap. Keep doing that all the way across. I'm up to my last gap. I'm going to place 3 double crochets in that. Before I do my final stitch, which goes in the top of the chain 3, I'm just going to quickly snip off my colour, my red from the previous row. Otherwise I'm going to be attached to, I don't know how many balls of yarn. It's going to get a bit confusing. I'm just going to tie a little knot just to secure these ends. Don't pull too hard on the first one, otherwise you might make your stitches go a bit funny shape. But I pulled tight on the second one. Just going to get the red out of the way now. Right, what's my next colour? Yellow. I'll do one more row with you, because hopefully by now you'll know exactly what you're doing with the granny stitch rows, because you've just done it 4 times, haven't you, to make your squares into rectangles. So coming back to row 2 and the final stitch, skip over the double crochet and go in the top of the chain 3 from the previous row with a double crochet. I'm changing colour, so I'm just going to pick up this one and chain 3, turn my work, place another double crochet in the same stitch as the chain 3, skip over 3 double crochets and go in the next gap with 3 double crochets. And do that all the way across. And then when you get to the end, skip 3 double crochets and place 2 double crochets in the top of the chain 3 from the previous row. They said round again. I'm just going to do 1 for me at the minute because I'm changing colour. Let me just snip off my purple. Felt like I might have caught my finger there. It looked a bit close. Probably it wasn't close, it's just the angle I looked at it, but yeah, these scissors are quite sharp. I still not got my fancy pair. I said that in, I think, maybe my last one, that I really wanted a fancy pair of scissors. I do need to treat myself. Okay, so we are going to do 8 centimetres worth of the granny stitch. So you need to tape measure again and just measure in the centre from where you first started your rows. Mine is red. So, oh, I'm getting all befuddled. So I'm about 3.5, just over 3.5. We want it to be 8 centimetres. So I've got about this much more to go. So I'll meet you back here when I've done the first section. Right, I've done the first part of my neckline shaping. If I measure it, we are looking at around about 8 centimetres, so that's quite good. I'm now going to do this side. I'm only going to do the beginning of the row just to show you where to start, and then you can basically finish it off by doing the same amount of rows that you did on this side. On this side. So what you're going to do is you're going to start in the gap with the stitch marker. Not from that side, otherwise your stitches are going to be worked on different sides. So we're going to go in the gap with the stitch marker, slip stitch to join, chain 3 and another double crochet in the same gap. Skip 3 double crochets and do 3 double crochets in the gap. Keep doing this until you reach the DC bars, which is where I'm at now. So I'm going to skip a DC bar, go around my next one, next DC bar with 3 double crochets. Skip the next DC bar, go around the next DC bar with 3 double crochets, and then keep repeating that until you get to the final the final DC bar, and place your 2 double crochets in there. I nearly said 3 then. Place 2 double crochets in there. Then you're going to keep doing the exact same thing, adding the same amount of rows on this side as what you have for this side, and then you'll have 2 sections here. So I'll meet you back here when you've done the same thing on this side, and then we'll be doing the back panel. Right, so I've now done both sides of my neckline shaping. Don't worry if it sticks out a little bit where it's joined here, because by the time you've put it all together, you're not even going to notice any of that. So yeah, what we're going to do now is do the back panel. I'm just going to quickly remove my stitch markers because we don't need those anymore. And take those out. So that's front panel done. Now what you need to do is add the same amount onto the back panel. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows that I added on mine. Yours could be different because you're probably using different size yarn and hook and all that sort of business and blah blah blah. So whatever amount of rows you have on your front neckline shaping, you're going to add the same amount to the back panel. Let me just grab my back panel, which is here. Now the only thing you're going to do different with the back panel is, instead of doing just a little section like we've just done, you're going to go straight across, all the way across. So if you're changing colours, you're not going to have hardly as many ends as what you just had a few minutes ago. So I'm going to turn my work because my last row on, or my last round of stitches on the granny square, the original granny square, are facing me at the minute. So I'm going to turn my work so that those ones are not facing me. I've got the back side of them. Right, I've just got to have a look at what colour I used, because where are we? So yeah, I went straight in for red for mine. Where's my red? Let's load it up. So this is going to be exactly the same as what you've just done with the neck panel, not the neck panel, the neck shaping. But like I say, you're going to be going straight across. You're not going to be stopping, you're just going to keep going. I'll do a couple of rows with you, but you should already know exactly what you're doing because you've literally just done it twice, haven't you, on the front panel. So starting around the first DC bar, attach your yarn with a slip stitch, chain 3, which is your first double crochet, one more double crochet around that DC bar, skip the next DC bar and then put 3 double crochets around the next DC bar, skip the next DC bar and then go around the next DC bar. How many times can I say DC bar? With 3 double crochets, and keep repeating that process until you reach the original granny square, which is where I'm at now. So I've got one more DC bar and then I'm in the original granny square in the corner chain space. And you just go back to the original pattern then. 3 DCs, 3 double crochets, sorry I'm talking in short form there, 3 double crochets, skip 3 double crochets and 3 double crochets in the next gap. I love the granny stitch. I don't know what it is, but yeah, anything with a granny stitch in gets my attention. So just going to keep going straight across. We're not going to be fastening off until we get to the very end of this side that we are working on. So excited to get this one done. With all the colours, can't wait to see it come together. And it's different colours for me. These are not my usual colours, which makes it even more exciting. It's good to go different sometimes, isn't it? Right, I'm now coming to the final part of the granny square, the original granny square. And then I'm going to go back now to skipping over DC bars and then putting 3 double crochets in the next, around the next DC bar. Keep going until you reach your final DC bar, where you're going to place 2 double crochets, not 3, 2 double crochets in the I keep saying in, around the last DC bar. Oh, hang on, I need to change colour, don't I? So I'm just going to do my final one. I'm going to do one more row with you. Right, what colour's next for me? Purple. I'm going to finish my final stitch and add my new colour in at the same time, like I have been doing. Just gives you a bit of a neater edge, I find, if you do it this way. Right, chain 3, turn your work, and then you're going to skip that first double crochet there and go straight into the gap with 3 double crochets. And then we're not skipping over DC bars now, we're just doing the normal stitch pattern of skipping 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets in the next gap. And we're going to do that all the way across. Oh, I'm going through the wrong bit. Oh, I've picked up a bit of a stitch from the previous row. Never good. Always makes it stick out a bit then when you do that. Concentrate, Kelly. It's not a race. Oops. Getting there towards the end of my row. I'm almost there now. So you just got to remember that this row only has 1 double crochet at the end. Not 2, not 3, just 1. Oh, I've got all hooked up again right at the end there. So you're going to skip the last double crochet and go in the top of the chain 3 from the previous round with 1 double crochet. But I'm changing colour again, so yeah, I'll leave mine there. So you're just going to keep doing the same stitch pattern that you did for your front panel. So the next bit is going to have, next row is going to have 2 double crochets at each end. Next row 1 double crochet. You know this already, I'm sure, because you've just done it like on all of these sides and all of here, but it's good to have a little reminder. So yes, keep adding your rows until you have the exact same amount as your neckline shaping on the front. And then after that, we get to the fun part where we start to assemble it. So I'll meet you back here for assembling. Okay, so I've finished my back panel. I've added the same amount of rows as what I have on the front panel. Don't worry again if it comes in a little bit here. Mine does that too. It's absolutely fine. Okay, if it does that, you're not even going to notice it by the time you put it all together. Okay, so the next part is assembling the 2 pieces together. So what you need to do, if you haven't already, is decide which one's going to be your right side, which one's going to be the wrong side. This is my wrong side because I weaved all my ends in and I left this little tail right in the centre. All my ends have been weaved in on this side. This is my wrong side. I need the back panel right side to be facing me, like so. Then I need to get my front panel. I'm going to do the opposite for this. So this is my right side and this is my wrong side. I want my right sides to be touching each other. So right side, touching. So now on my back panel, my front panel, sorry, on my front panel, I can see my wrong side. So we call it right sides touching, right sides together, normally I say. So we're going to do it right sides together. So then when we seam, and when the seaming's done, we turn it out and we should have both of our right sides facing outwards. So what we're going to do now is get our trusty little stitch markers. You're going to need your measuring tape as well. So what we're going to do first, we're just going to measure out the armholes. Now I've got the measurements for this in the written description of the video. Again, if you're using a phone, it's that little upside down V to the right of the title of the video. There's normally another upside down V right above, which is usually an ad. My one is right beside my title. So we're going to measure down one side for the armhole. I'm doing a small, so my measurement says 17.5 centimetres. If you're doing a different size, yours is going to be different to that. So make sure you don't follow mine, you find your right measurement. So mine's 17.5 centimetres. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape measure. I'm going to measure down from the top on one side, 17.5 centimetres. I'm going to want to go in the gap which is closest to that measurement. We're not going to go for a stitch, we're just going to bung it through a gap. So mine's kind of on the cusp here, so I'm going to just wiggle my finger in here, if you can see that, grab my stitch marker and just put it through that first one to begin with, through the top front panel. Now I'm going to count from where my rectangle is. I'm not going to worry about the neckline shaping. I'm going to count the gaps from here to here. So if we include the first gap right at the top, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's gone in gap number 5. So I'm just going to put it through the exact same gap in the back panel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's now, my stitch marker is now through the front and the back panel. I'm going to come over to my other side and I'm going to count the exact same number of gaps and put my stitch markers through them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again for the back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there we go. I'm not going to worry too much for stitch markers for seaming my shoulder seam this side, but I will add one eventually on this side because we are going to start from here and go across, but I'll do that in a moment. Right now I'm going to concentrate on this side for seaming. Okay, let's put my tape measure to one side, get my hook, get my yarn. So for this we're going to seam it like kind of like a zigzag kind of seam. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the front panel first. We're going to find that first stitch, which for me is the top of the chain 3. I'm going to attach my yarn with a slip stitch in the front panel only. And then I'm going to chain 2. And now I'm going to drop my front panel. I'm going to pick up the back panel. I'm going to go through the very first stitch with a slip stitch, like so. Next, I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to drop the back panel and I'm going to pick up the front panel. And what we're going to do, we're going to be working in the stitches, not in the gaps. So we're going to skip the next stitch and then we're going to join with a slip stitch in the next stitch. And then we're going to chain 2. We're going to drop the front panel and pick up the back one. We're going to skip the next stitch on the back panel and go in the next stitch with a slip stitch. Right, we're going to repeat that all the way across. So we're going to chain 2. We're going to drop the back panel and pick up the front panel. Skip the next stitch, go in the next stitch with a slip stitch. chain 2, drop the front panel, pick up the back one, skip the next stitch, go in the next stitch with a slip stitch. Do that again, chain 2, drop the back panel, come to the front one, skip the next stitch, go in the next stitch with a slip stitch. Chain 2, drop your front panel, come to the back one, skip the next stitch and go in the next one with a slip stitch. Again, chain 2, drop your back panel, come to the front one, skip the next stitch and go in the next one with a slip stitch. Chain 2, drop the front panel, come to the back, skip the next stitch and go in the next one with a slip stitch. Now we're going to keep repeating this, but if you've got an odd number of stitches, you're just going to breeze through it and you're going to keep skipping a stitch in between, skipping stitches. It's going to work out lovely. If you've got an even number of stitches, which I'm pretty certain I just counted an even number for me, then I'll show you what you're going to do when you get near the end. So I'm just going to keep repeating myself. Chain 2, drop my back panel and pick up my front one, skip the next stitch and go in the next one with a slip stitch. Chain 2, drop the front panel, come to the back one, skip the next stitch, go in the next one with a slip stitch. Chain 2, drop the back panel, come to the front one, skip the next stitch and go in the next one with a slip stitch. I'm coming near the end now. Chain 2, pick up the back panel and go through the skip the next stitch and go through the next one with a slip stitch. Oof, chain 2. Okay, so I have got an even number of stitches here, so that's absolutely fine. It doesn't matter. What we're going to do is we're going to skip our next stitch and go in the next one like normal. Chain 2, drop the front panel, come to the back one, skip the next stitch and go in the next one with a slip stitch. Chain 2. Now, because we've got an even number of stitches, we don't have another stitch left to skip. That doesn't matter. So all we're going to do is we're just going to go in the last stitches. It doesn't matter that we haven't got anything to skip. Oh, I just yarn over. Don't yarn over. We're going in with a slip stitch. So in that final stitch in your front panel, just put a slip stitch. Chain 2. Nope. Drop it, come to the very next stitch on the back panel with a slip stitch. And there we have it. Now, because we've got an even number and we wasn't able to skip a stitch before the final stitch, all you've got to do is start it exactly the same as how we finished it for the next side. But don't worry, I'll show you that in a second, because obviously I've got an even number of stitches, so it's fine. I'll show you what to do. Odds, you're all right. You've just breezed through it, doing the whole thing. Skip, next, skip, next, skip, next. Lovely old job. But us evens, yeah, we weren't able to skip our last one. But like I say, it does not matter. As long as we make it even for this side, exactly how we did it for this side, it'll be fine. So I'm just going to fasten off. Just pull my ends tight. And then, yeah, we'll come back and do this one in a second. Right, now we're going to seam the other shoulder, and we're not going to turn our work or anything like that. We're going to start from this side. So now what we're going to need is a stitch marker. You're going to need to count your stitches on the front neckline. How many stitches are here? So I'm just going to count mine. I have 16 stitches. So I'm just going to put my front one to one side, grab my stitch marker close by, and I'm going to count 16 for me because that's how many I've got. You might have a different number, but I've got 16 on my front neckline. I'm going to count 16 stitches in here, and I'm going to place my stitch marker in the 16th stitch. So I'm just going to go quiet while I count 16. Place my stitch marker in my 16th stitch to match here. Okay, so we're now going to do the opposite side. Just grab my yarn. So same process as what you've just done. Pick up the front panel only and go through that very first stitch. For me, that is the turning chain, well, the chain 3, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going in the top of the chain 3 with a slip stitch to join the yarn. Then we're going to chain 2, drop your front panel, pick up the back panel and go through that exact same stitch with the stitch marker in it with a slip stitch. Now, if you've got an odd number of stitches, you are going to do exactly what you've just been doing. Chain 2, drop the back panel, come to the front one, skip your next stitch and go in the next one with a slip stitch. Now, if you're even, we wasn't able to do that. So what we're going to do is start this one exactly how we finished this one. So what we are going to do is chain 2. This is for even number of stitches only. You're going to come into your front panel and go in the very next stitch with a slip stitch. Chain 2, if I can pull that through. Chain 2, come to your back panel and go through the very next stitch with a slip stitch. And now we can continue doing the normal stitch pattern, which is chain 2, pick up the front panel, skip the next stitch and go in the next one with a slip stitch. Chain 2, go to the back panel, skip the next stitch and go in the next one with a slip stitch. Chain 2, come to the front, skip next stitch, go in the next one with a slip stitch. Chain 2, come to the back panel, skip next stitch, go in the next one with a slip stitch. And just keep repeating that all the way across. Making sure you're skipping the stitches. That just gives it this cute little zigzag effect. I really love joining everything like this at the minute. It's like my go-to seam for things. I use this seam as well on my Granny hexagon sweater, just to jazz up the seam going down the centre of the sweater. I'm in my final one, so yeah, I've just got my 2 stitches left. So I'm going to skip the next stitch on my front panel and slip stitch in the very last stitch. Chain 2, come to my back panel, skip my final stitch, or not the final stitch, skip the second from last stitch, and then my final stitch is the chain 3, so I'm going to go straight in the top of that with a slip stitch. There we go. That's your shoulders done and dusted. You just fasten off and then pull this side tight. Now, a little suggestion that I always say, because we are all different shapes and sizes, I just go by the average measurements for each size. but we're all different. We are all different. So what I would probably suggest is maybe popping a few more stitch markers down the sides, just down here, and then gently trying it on and see what you think to your armholes. If you're having, like, if you're not going to add long sleeves, then I suppose it doesn't really matter how big your armholes are, to be fair. If you are thinking about doing long sleeves, do bear in mind that if you make your armholes bigger, you might get a little bit of bunchiness at the bottom of your underarm. That's the only thing. But I always suggest have a little try on. I know it's a bit tricky with the stitch markers. It's very tricky because they just ping off, don't they? You're like, ah, no. It is quite tricky. But it's always good to try it on before you start seaming. Or you could just seam it, and then if you're happy to frog it and undo it and go again, it's up to you. So yeah, I'm just going to weave in a couple of ends because I'm a bit crazy like that. And then I'll meet you back here where we're going to do the exact same seam along these two sides here. And then it's all coming together. Okay, right, what we're going to do now is we are going to do the exact same seam but along the sides. So we're going to start from the bottom. If you flip your garment around, we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up to the stitch marker. Sorry, I just had a cheeky chocolate bar in between recording. Cheeky chocolate bar. Right, what we're going to do is get our yarn. So yes, it's going to be exactly the same thing as what you've just done. Nice and easy. So we're going to pick up your front panel first and go through the very first stitch with a slip stitch. Chain 2, grab the back panel wherever it's disappeared to, there it is, and go through that very first stitch. Mine is the chain 3, so just be wary of that you've got your chain 3. Go through the top of the chain 3, don't miss it. Ooh. With a slip stitch, chain 2, come to the front panel, skip the next stitch and go through the next one with a slip stitch, chain 2, grab the back panel, skip the next stitch and go through the next one with a slip stitch, chain 2, grab the front one, skip the next stitch, go through the next one with a slip stitch, chain 2, grab the back one, skip the next stitch, go through the next one with a slip stitch, chain 2. So I'm just going to keep doing that. Hopefully you have remembered because you've just done it twice, haven't you, for the shoulder seams. Just keep going back and forth on those front and back panels, skipping a stitch in between and joining with the slip stitch, and then chaining 2 to get to the next panel again. Not much seaming to do, which is good. If you can even call it that, because we're still using our hook. I always like to try and use my hook wherever possible for seaming. Not a great fan of hand sewing. Well, I do love my sewing machine, but yeah, my hand sewing is just awful. It's awful. Never mind. Getting near my stitch marker now. So it's getting a bit fiddlier to get these stitches in. Now, because your stitch marker's in the gap, we haven't got to worry about odd or even stitches. Just finish it when you get near your stitch marker, basically. Yep, that'll do for me. Remember to make sure your final stitch is in your back panel. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Right, going to fasten off, knot it, take up my stitch marker because that's done, pull my end tight this end. There you go, one side seam from the inside. See, it just gives it this like zigzag effect. I love it. I love it. I love it so much. It's my favourite seam of the moment. So yeah, we're going to do the exact same thing for this side. I'm not going to run through that because we've literally just done it. But yeah, exact same thing along here. And then when you've done that, I will meet you here and we're going to do the neckline. Just one thing that I forgot to add, make sure that you finish in the exact same stitches as what you've done on this side seam. So when you go to do your sleeves, you don't have different numbers of stitches on each side. Nearly forgot that one there. Okay, so I've now joined my two pieces together, had a little try on and was like, yes, love it, very good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn our top so it's now the right side facing. So let me just turn mine round. Like so. Now the next part of the pattern is the neckline. So what you need to do now is you need to count how many rows you added to your neckline shaping. So right, I'm going to count mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I've got the seam bar. So because I've got an odd number of rows, I am going to attach my yarn around the seam bar. Now if you counted an even number of rows, you are going to attach your yarn to the first stitch right after the seam bar. Okay, you're going in the very first stitch, not the seam bar, but the very first stitch. But I've got an odd number, so I'm going around the seam bar. So laying it down, we are going in the top left corner, right at the back. Odd, seam bar, even, first stitch directly after the seam bar. So for this round, we're just going to be placing 2 double crochets in the gaps instead of 3. We're just going to be doing 2 doubles, not 3 doubles. It's nice and easy round, lovely and easy. So odd, I'm going around the seam bar. Remember, if you're even, you're going in the next stitch along and you're going to attach your yarn. Even if you're even, do exactly the same as what I'm doing right now. Attach your yarn with a slip stitch, chain 3, which classes as your first double. So for me, I'm on the seam bar, 1 more double around that seam bar. If you're in the stitch, you're going to put 1 more double in that stitch. And now all of us are going to go into the very next gap with 2 double crochets. Skip the 3, 2 double crochets. What's a crochet? 2 double crochets in the next gap. Skip 3, 2 double crochets in the next gap. A crochet, making up words now, look. So keep putting just 2 doubles in the gaps all the way across the back. Because I'm chatting, I'm just double checking that I am definitely doing 2 doubles and not 3. 2 doubles in all the gaps. Right, I've just gone in the final gap. So if you had an even number of rows, you will be placing 2 doubles in this stitch directly before the seam bar. Okay, if you've got an odd number like me, then we're going to go straight around the seam bar with 2 doubles. And now we're going to skip over the DC bars, which we've done this already, so you hopefully will know what you're doing. Skipping over a DC bar, going around the next one. If you're the if you had the even number and you got your 2 doubles in this stitch, then the first bit you're going to be skipping over is a seam bar and then going around the next DC bar. All sounds really confusing, but it's not. When you look at it, you'll know exactly what I mean. We're just going to skip DC bar, go around the next one with 2 double crochets, skip the next DC bar, go around the next one with 2 double crochets, skip the next DC bar, go around the next one with 2 double crochets. Keep doing the same thing until you find yourself onto the original rectangle. Then we're just going to keep putting DCs, double crochets in all the gaps. Keep going around the whole thing with your 2 double crochets. Two doubles in all the gaps. Nice and easy. Just checking that I am definitely placing 2 doubles. And then when you come back, you're going to be doing exactly the same thing onto the side, skipping your DC bars and going around the next DC bar with 2 doubles. And we'll keep doing this until we reach the beginning of the round. Hang on, I've got too much yarn in between those 2 stitches. I'm there. Oh yeah, I'm there. That. And then you're going to join to the top of your chain 3 from the beginning of the round with a slip stitch. And that's that. Now you can either leave it just like that, or if you want to, you can finish it with an extra round of single crochet. I like to try it on first and make sure that my head fits through it all right, because you don't want to keep adding rounds if it's going to be tight. You want to be able to get your head through it, basically. So I might just leave mine as it is, but you can always add a round of single crochet. It's completely up to you. But at the minute, I'm going to leave mine as it is. So I'm going to fasten off. And that's my neckline. So easy. Whoever knew it could be that easy? So next section we're going to do is the peplum. I'm going to do sleeves last, because in my written pattern I do have the sleeves next, but every time I've made one of these I've always gone for the peplum next, because I think that helps you to decide what sleeves you're going to add. I mean, the options are, well, there's so many options, you know. You could have it, I'm just going to do like a little frill on mine basically. I'm not going to do a long sleeve, but you can have a T sleeve, you can have a 3/4 length sleeve, you can have a full length sleeve with a ruffle, without a ruffle. There's so many different things you can have, but I find that if you've got the peplum on, it helps you decide what you're going to do with your sleeves. Don't know why, but I just do. So I'll join you back here in a moment where we're going to do the pretty peplum. Right, the next section is attaching the peplum. So what we're going to do is have our tops, we're going to keep them right side facing. We're going to turn it so it's upside down. And what we're going to do, let me just get my yarn ready. We're going to attach our yarn around the first DC bar before the seam bar. Okay, so you've got your seam running down here. We're going to attach our yarn around the first DC bar. So just in here, attach it with a slip stitch and chain 3 and put 3 double crochets back around that seam bar. For this round, we are just going to do the granny stitch all the way around. So skip over the seam bar and go around the next DC bar with 3 double crochets. Again, skip DC bar, go around the next one with 3 doubles. Oh, let this come out. Keep skipping the DC bars and going around the next one until you reach the original granny square, which I believe I'm now coming up to mine. Yep, I'm now coming up to mine. Place 3 double crochets in there, and then from here on, for a little while anyway, you're going to be skipping over 3 doubles and putting 3 doubles in the gaps. Same as what we have been doing. Oh, my yarn's stuck. So yeah, keep skipping 3 double crochets. And 3 double crochets in the gap. I'll just do a little bit more with you. I'll just do one side. Okay, so I'm now coming off my original granny square, and I'm now back to skipping over the DC bars and then placing 3 DCs around the next DC bar, or 3 double crochets around the next DC bar. Skip DC bar, 3 double crochets around the next one. Keep going until you reach the other seam bar. So I'm at the opposite side now. And then you will skip over your seam bar and go 3 doubles around the next DC bar. And then you will keep repeating that all the way around until you reach the beginning of this round. So I'm just going to pause the video and I will come back to you when I've finished this round. So I'm right at the end of my first round. I've got one more set of 3 doubles to place. And then I'm going to join it to the top of the chain 3 from the beginning of the round with a slip stitch. Like so. I'm going to change colour for mine. So I'm going to snip off, fasten off. From here on out, we will not be turning our work after every round. So if you want to stay with the same colour, then you're just going to slip stitch back into the same gap where you are right now. Just slip stitch back into that gap and you're ready to go again. Chain 3, blah de blah de blah, whatever we're doing for the next round. I am going to change colour, so I'm just going to undo that little slip stitch and fasten off. Let's get my new yarn ready. Now this, what I suggest actually you do first, if you're making it for yourself, I suggest that you try it on first and see if you're happy with where this final row sits, because the next row is going to be the peplum. Now we all have different size busts. I mean, mine are quite small, there's not a lot going on. For me, this is perfect. It sits right under my bust. I'm ready for the peplum. But if you have got a fuller chest and you need a few more extra rows, then add them now. Add a few more extra rows of just what we've just done. Exactly the same thing with the granny clusters, your 3 doubles in each gap. Keep adding length until you're happy with it, because then the next bit is going to be where the peplum starts. So I say it needs to be under your bust. Doesn't even matter if it's sitting on your bust a little bit, it will still look really pretty. Or if you want to bring it lower, like in your head you think, no, I actually want a lower peplum, then keep adding more rounds until you are happy with the length that it's at. I'm happy with just the one on mine, so the next row for me is going to be the peplum. But I do highly suggest, if you're making it for yourself, try it on. And if you think, yeah, I'm ready for the peplum, then here we go. If you're not, pause the video, add a few more rounds of granny stitch until you're happy with the length that it's at. Right, so peplum time, woohoo! I'm just going to attach my yarn in the same bit from where I just fastened off with a slip stitch. I'm just going to go in the gap with a slip stitch. Oh, my little tail's getting in the way. Move over there, there we go. Right, slip stitch. This first bit here, we're just going to chain 3 and put 2 doubles back into the same gap. Now, in the next gap, we are going to place 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets back in that same gap. And we're going to do that in every single gap, okay? So skip over your 3 doubles, next gap, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 more double crochets back into that same gap. Again, skip next 3 doubles, 3 double crochets in the next gap, chain 1, 3 double crochets back into that same gap. And if you look, you can see it's starting to get a bit wavy. It's kind of like you put in like a fan stitch sort of thing in each gap, basically. I'll show you again a couple more times, and then I will pause the video and meet you back before we join up to the last bit. So skip 3 doubles, 3 double crochets in the next gap, chain 1, 3 double crochets back into the same gap. I'll show you one more time. Skip over the 3 doubles, 3 double crochets in the next gap, chain 1, 3 double crochets back into the same gap. And you're going to keep doing that in every single gap all the way around. 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets in every single gap, okay? And I'm going to meet you back here at the final gap before where we started the round. I think said the row. Before where we started the round. I'll meet you back here in a minute. Okay, I've just got to my final gap. It's gone a bit gloomy here. I do apologise if it's got a little bit dark. I think it's about to rain. Okay, so I'm in my final gap. Well, I say my final gap. The gap before the beginning of the round. So I'm going to put my 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets back into the same gap, which brings us to the very first gap, which has already got 3 doubles in. So we're going to go into that gap with 3 more doubles into that same gap, and then chain 1, and then you're going to join it to the top of the chain 3 with a slip stitch. And that is the first round of the peplum. So because we're not turning our work after every round, if you want to stick with the same colour, just the same as what I said a little while ago, you are literally going to slip stitch back into this gap here with the chain space in it. So place a slip stitch in there, and then you are ready to start the next round. I'm changing colour because I'm crazy and I'm changing colour every single round, but it does look amazing. So I am going to fasten off. Don't even know what my next colour is. Yellow. Next colour is yellow. Right, so let me just tighten up my ends like that. We grab the next colour. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm all over the place. Put that in there. So I'm going to attach my new colour in that chain space, right where I just fastened off. So I'm going in the middle of these two sets of 3 double crochets. 2 sets of granny clusters, whatever you want to call them. I'm going in that chain space with a slip stitch to attach my new yarn. Okay, so for this round, we're going to chain 3 and put 2 double crochets back into that chain space. Then we're going to skip 3 doubles, and we're going to go in the gap with 3 double crochets. And then we're going to skip 3 doubles, and we're going to go in the chain space in between this cluster here. We're going to go in the chain space with 3 doubles. Skip 3 double crochets and place 3 doubles in the next gap. Skip 3 double crochets and place 3 double crochets in the chain space. And then we're just going to keep repeating that. Skip 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets in the next gap. Skip 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets in the chain space. I'll show you one more time. Skip 3 double crochets, 3 doubles in the next gap. Skip 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets in the chain space. Skip my words are muddled up again then. So basically we're doing our regular granny stitch. In the gap, then in the chain space. In the gap, then in the chain space. And you're going to do that all the way around until you get to the beginning of the round. So I'll meet you back here again once we've got to the end of the round. Right, I've now got 1 gap left of my round. So I'm going to place 3 doubles in that last gap. And then I'm just going to join to the top of the chain 3 from the beginning of the round. And that's that round done. Now remember, we're not turning our work. So if you're sticking with the same colour, you are just going to slip stitch back into that gap. Okay? But I'm changing colour. So snip that off. Next colour is like a lilac-y kind of colour, I do believe. Yeah. Let me get my next colour. From here on out, the peplum It's so easy. We're just going to keep doing rows of granny stitches and that's it. No chains in the middle, just your regular granny stitches. So I'll do a little bit with you and then leave you to it. Woohoo! For how long you want to make it is completely up to you. If you're making it for yourself, sorry, I'm not even saying what I'm doing there, hang on. Joining my yarn with a slip stitch, chaining 3, 2 doubles back into the gap. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, look. Skip 3 doubles, you know the drill now, look. We're going to put 3 doubles in every gap basically. 3 double crochets in every single gap. All the way around, and this is all you're going to keep doing now with every single row until you're happy with your length. Sorry, my voice has gone. My voice has like gone into 3 different tones then. Don't quite know what happened. So yeah, 3 doubles in every gap all the way around. Now I'm going to put in the written description different lengths that you can aim for. If you're making it for somebody else, then there's a guide there for if you would like a top to like just above or just below like your belly button, the waistline, hip to your hip, a dress like just above your knee, and then one just below your knee. But like I say, if you're making it for yourself, just keep trying it on and stop when you are happy with it. I'm going to make mine to the waist measurement. This is just going to be a nice little summery top for me, this one is. So yeah, 3 doubles in every single gap. And that is all you're going to keep doing for the peplum. Let me just get a little way across. And if you are using the measurements, I will just show you how you're going to measure the top for the length. Oh, 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 it's because I'm rushing that. Stop rushing, Kelly. Where am I at? I kind of want to get to the centre, just past the centre, so I can show you. Hang on, I'm not happy with that stitch. It's got a massive gap in it. So yeah, 3 doubles in every gap, and that's all you're doing from here on out for the peplum. So easy, isn't it? Who would have thought that such a cute little top could be so easy? I've been wanting to do this design for such a long time. It's been in my head, but I've just never had the time to do it. And then one night I sat there with nothing to do and I thought, oh, I might try that and see if it works. And then it did, and I was like, oh, I love it. I love it so much. It's exactly how I imagined it and more. It's currently in testing right now, but obviously by the time you are watching this video, it will be out in the big wide world. But my testers have been amazing. They've all loved the pattern as well, and they've made such beautiful garments from it. I say it all the time, but I absolutely love seeing everyone's version of it. All the different colour combinations and your take on it. So if you do make one, please send me a picture or tag me. I'm on Facebook now as well, so you can find me on there too. If you're over on Facebook, because I know not everybody's on Instagram, are they? So I finally set up a Facebook page, Craftandacuppa. Right, let me just stop a minute. So, if you are using the measurements, look, can you see? Woohoo! Little ruffle. Sorry, get a bit excited. What you're going to do, is that in the screen? Let me just double check. I'm a bit high. Can I squeeze it all in? It's a bit tight, isn't it? It's a little bit tight. But you can get the gist anyway. If you are using the measurements that are provided for the added length, So easy. You're just going to measure from the center top right at the back, from the back panel, measure straight down the center, like what I tend to do as my ruffle, my peplum gets bigger. I will like just literally flatten it out the best I can at the front. Obviously it's not too bad at the minute because I've hardly got anything on it, but the longer it gets I just flatten it out, and then we literally measure from the center down, right down. At the minute I'm at 38 centimeters. I can't remember what my waist measurement is. I forgot to write it down. I feel like it's in the 40s somewhere for a small, maybe 49 possibly. So that's what I'm aiming for. But if you keep going, it will turn into a beautiful dress. And it's that easy. So you decide what length you want to make yours. If you want to make the dress, just keep going and going and going until you're happy, or you use my measurements. Or if you want a cute little top, I've also provided measurements for that as well. So keep doing the granny stitch on every single round. Don't turn your work. Always work on the right side. And I will meet you back here when you have a beautiful, gorgeous peplum. And then we will do the last part of the pattern, which is the sleeves. So I'll meet you back here soon. Okay, so I've finished my peplum. I've gone to like a waist measurement. I do also have measurements, remember, that you can work towards. If you're making it for yourself though, I just suggest keep trying it on and go till you're happy. Got my nice little peplum bit at the bottom here. We're getting close to the end now, so what we're going to do next are the sleeves. Now I'm only going to be doing a very, very short sleeve. I'm just going to do one round of granny stitch, and then I'm going to add my frill to that. So yeah, but you can keep going as long as you like. As long as you like. I've got measurements again in the written description of the video. If you want it to be T length, 3/4 length looks gorgeous. That's my favourite one, 3/4 length. Full length sleeve. You can have a ruffle on the end. You don't have to have a ruffle. You could do whatever you want with it. It's your top. So yeah, I've got measurements for them. But again, like I say, if you're making it for yourself, the best thing that you can do is just to keep trying it on. And then when you're happy, stop. Okay, right, so we're going to be working with our top, dress, whatever you've made, top or dress. We're facing you, right side facing you. And I'm just going to start in this side. It doesn't matter which one you go in, but I'm going to start in this side. Alright, so let me take my yarn and make a slip knot for it to go around my hook. So we are taking any side. I'm going for left, which is facing me, and we're going to place our first stitch around the seam bar. Okay, that first seam bar. So I'm going to attach it with a slip stitch around that center seam bar, and then we're going to chain 3 and put 2 more double crochets around that seam bar. Then we're going to skip over these 3 doubles here and go into the next gap with 3 double crochets. Skip 3, do 3 doubles in the gap. You know the drill. Still doing the granny stitch pattern. Skip 3 doubles, 3 doubles in the gap. And then I'm now coming up to my added length for the neckline shaping. So what we're going to be doing now is skipping over the DC bars. So skip over the next DC bar and go around the next DC bar with 3 double crochets. Skip the next DC bar, go around your next one with 3 double crochets. Oh, hang on, I've not quite gone round the whole bar. Let's try that again. Where I've weaved in ends, that's better. Keep repeating this process until you come up around the seam bar. So you keep skipping the DC bar, 3 double crochets around the next DC bar. Now, depending on how many rows you added for your neckline shaping, you're either going to be placing double crochets around the seam bar at the top for the shoulder seam, or you're going to skip over that. Just depends. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which one. For me, it's fell so that I'm going around the seam bar with 3 doubles, and I'm coming back down on myself now around the other side, skipping a DC bar, placing 3 double crochets around the next DC bar. Keep doing that until you make your way back down to the original stitch pattern. Got one more to do, and then I'm back to the original corner space of my rectangle, and then that brings me back into skipping 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets in the next gap. Oh, hang on, that one went funny. Ooh. Let's do that one again. Here we go, making our way around. Skipping 3, going back with 3 in the gap. Okay, so I'm right at the beginning. This bit looks a little gappy here. Oh, where am I? So I'm going to place 3 doubles in this last gap right here, right before my seam bar. Another 3 doubles. 1, just to fill up that gap. Now I'm going to join it to the top of my chain 3 from the beginning of the round. Now I'm changing colour. If you was to carry on doing this around, because basically however long you want your sleeve to be, you're just going to keep doing rows and rows of the granny stitch until you're happy and you think, yeah, I want to put a little ruffle on the end of that, so that was what I'm going to start doing next. I am just going to do a very, very short sleeve because I want one for the summer. This will be my only round of granny stitch that I'm doing, but I do have measurements again in the written description if you want to go longer. If you want to carry on with the same colour, all you're going to do is chain 3 and turn your work, and then you're ready to go again by placing 2 doubles in that gap and carrying on. So we're still turning. If you're doing the granny stitch, you're still turning while you're adding length. If you've got the same colour and you want to add a ruffle right now, what you're going to do is slip stitch back into that gap that you've just come out of, or this gap right here, basically right underneath you. You're going to slip stitch into that, and now you are ready to continue doing your little ruffle. If you're using the same colour, that is. I'm not, so I am going to, oh, hang on, let me get that like that. I'm going to fasten off. When we do the ruffle, I do the ruffle on the right side because it just helps with the flare, I think. If you start turning and you end on a round that's wrong side facing, the ruffle kind of goes in a bit. That's why I like to do the ruffle front side only, right side only, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I'm not adding any extra length, but if you are, you're going to keep doing rounds and rounds of granny stitch until you're happy with the length. I'm happy, I'm just going straight in for the ruffle. So I'm going to fasten off. I'm keeping my work right side facing me. And the ruffle is exactly the same as how we did the peplum. Let me just swap my yarn over. I've just got to pop back in a second because I'm boiling some eggs and I can hear them beeping. There we go, I've turned my eggs off. I could just hear them beeping. I was like, oh yes, I forgot. Hard boiling some eggs. Right, let me get my new yarn attached. So I'm going straight back in that same gap where I've just fastened off with a slip stitch, chain 3, place 2 double crochets back into that same gap. Remember, this is for the ruffle only. If you want to add extra length, then you need to keep repeating rows of the granny stitch. So what we're going to do now is we're going to skip over 3 doubles and we're going to put 3 double crochets in this gap. And then we're going to chain 1 and place 3 more doubles back into this gap. How many have I just done? 2, 3. Then we're going to skip 3 doubles and place 3 doubles in the next gap, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 more doubles back in the same gap. And this is exactly the same how we started our peplum off to get that ruffle going. So you skip 3 doubles and place 3 doubles in the next gap, a chain 1 and another 3 doubles in the same gap. I'll show you one more time. So you're going to skip 3 double crochets and place 3 double crochets in the next gap, chain 1, 3 double crochets back into that same gap. Now I'm going to keep doing this all the way around and I'll meet you back here when I get to the beginning. Right, I'm right near the end of my round. I've just placed 3 double crochets, a chain 1 and 3 double crochets in this last gap, which has brought me to the beginning of the round where I've currently got 1 gap with 3 doubles in it. So what I'm going to do is place 3 double crochets in that gap, chain 1 and then join it to the top of the chain 3 from the beginning of the round with a slip stitch. There we go. Now I'm keeping my ruffle as it is. I'm just adding 1 round of the ruffle and that's it. If you want your ruffle to be longer, you're just going to do the exact same process as what we did for the peplum. So you're going to be working from the right side only, and you're going to be placing 3 double crochets in every chain space and gap. So it's going to be 3 double crochets, skip 3, 3 double crochets, skip 3, 3 double crochets in the center of this fan here in the chain space, skip 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets in the next gap, skip 3 double crochets and go in the center with the chain space, 3 double crochets. Okay, you just be placing 3 double crochets in every chain space and every gap. Exactly the same process as what you did for the peplum, and then you can make your ruffle as long as you want. But I am sticking with this. I just want it to be nice and short to wear as a little summer top. I already own 1 peplum top with a 3/4 length sleeve, and I also made a dress with a 3/4 length sleeve. Love them both. I really love them. I was like, when I made my first Granny Peplum and I made the short sleeve version, I put it on, I was like, oh my gosh, I love it so much. I kind of didn't want to make the sleeves longer, but at the same time I had to know if they worked. So begrudgingly, I undone my little short ruffle and I went 3/4, and I absolutely love it. Love that top so much. Always get stopped and complimented on it every time I go out in it. So there we are. Is that in the shot? 1 little ruffle sleeve. So you're going to repeat the same thing for the other side. Make a note if you've added extra length, because I've only done 1 round. If you decided you wanted to go longer, like the 3/4 or full, make sure you remember how many rows. Well, you haven't really got to remember, have you? You just got to go back and count. And make sure you add the exact same amount of rows, or rounds, sorry, of the granny stitch for this side as what you have done for this side. So yeah, I'll meet you back here when you have your sleeves completed, and then we will do the final part of the tutorial, which is optional. You don't have to have it, but I really think it like really clinches in the peplum and makes it really stick out lovely. And that is a little tie to go round the bottom of the peplum. I will get my words out eventually. I'm getting there. It's all trial and error, isn't it? So yeah, meet you back here where you've got both your sleeves, and then we'll do the final part of the pattern. Right, so I finished my ruffle around both of my sleeves. We're now on the final part of the pattern, which is completely optional actually, by the way. You don't have to do this, but it's a little tie that goes round the peplum, where the peplum starts, right before actually where the peplum starts. So yeah, literally just a little tie with some tassels on the end. It really helps to bring in that peplum, and it does look lovely. If you're doing a dress, I do recommend doing a wider belt, but I'm not going to show the tutorial for that on here. That is actually included though in the written pattern. That's optional as well, but I just found with the dress it set it off nicely with a thicker belt. But for now, we're keeping it nice and simple, and we're just going to basically do a little tie, a little tassel tie. So let me just move this out the way. What you're going to need to do is look in the written description of the video again and find the measurement for the size you are working towards for the tassel tie. Now I'm doing a small, mine says about 130 centimetres. So this part is just very easy. Basically, all you're going to do is create a chain that is well, if you're doing a size small, 130 centimetres. Remember, if you're doing a different size, your size is going to be different to that. You don't need to count your chains at all, because you're just going to do it until you reach that measurement. So yeah, basically make a chain as long as the tassel tie measurement in the written instructions. Well, not the written instructions. Well, it is kind of the written description. Well, I don't really know what to call it. I always call it the written description. I'm just going to do a little bit here on the video, and then I'll come back to you when it's time to do the tassels. So yeah, basically just do a chain for as long as the tassel tie measurement in the written description, and I'll meet you back here and we'll do the little tassels on the ends together. Okay, so I've reached my length for the tassel tie, so I'm just going to fasten off. Just knot that to secure it. Okay, remove my yarn over here. So what we're going to do now is take your garment and lay it down so that the front is facing you. Just check that you can see what I'm doing in here. Move it up a little bit further. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to weave in this tie on the final row or final round before we started the peplum. So we've got the ones with the doubles, the 3 sets of double crochets in one cluster area. We're going to go with the row before that. Round, row. I keep saying row. What I mean is round. I mean, I always eyeball this bit, so I'm just going to look at the centre, my centre square, right in the middle, and just drag my finger down, and that falls here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tie. I'm just going to start weaving it. So where that centre gap is, I'm just going to put it straight through there, and I'm going to weave it in and out of the 3 sets of double crochets, granny clusters, whatever you want to call them. We're just going to be going in, out, in and out, weaving it in between all the way around. Just get a bit more on there. I've just realised that I've used this red. That kind of clashes a little bit, doesn't it? Ah, do you know what? That'll be fine. It'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. I use this red because it's the one that I've got the most colour left of. So just keep going all the way around, weaving it in between. I'm now going to turn this around. Come all the way around the back, weaving it in between. Sometimes I find it easy just to give it some of this action. Just grab the end and just keep weaving it through like this. Weavy, weavy, weavy. There you go, it's a bit quicker doing it that way, isn't it? Just grab the end and just weave it through. Like so. Now I'm going to flip it back round again. So I'm back on the front. I've got to go through this bit here. I need a bit more slack, I think, just to make it a bit even. Right, now coming back up to the centre. There we go. We have one tie. Nearly. Now we're going to add some tassels onto it. So I'm just going to put this to one side whilst I get my tassels ready. So you're going to need a tape measure, a sharp pair of scissors and your crochet hook. Now I know I've been working in centimetres all this time. I'm now going to work in inches. You're going to want to be cutting your yarn about 7 inches long. I mean, if you want to still work in centimetres, you're looking about 17.5, 18 centimetres. Personally, I just find 7 inches a much easier number to remember. Now, I'm going to go crazy because I've used so many colours. I'm going to add them into my little tie, I think. Have a bit green, red. Right, so I suggest cutting maybe 6 to 7 for one tassel. About 6 to 7 at about 7 inches. Don't worry if it's not all even, that's fine. Alright, so I'm going to put that there. I'm going to need 2 lots, aren't I? Oh, that's all right, I'll just do one. I'll just do one for the time being. Otherwise you're going to get bored of watching me cutting little tiny strands of yarn, aren't you? Let's have a bit purple. I can find the end. Like I say, it doesn't matter. Oh, doesn't matter if they're even or not. I think I need to replace my scissors. I've had these for years. I probably should replace them. Right, what else I've got? Bit of yellow. How many have I got there? 3. Let's have a bit of yellow. About 7 inches. Remember, it doesn't have to be spot on. Bit of blue. Bit of orange. Maybe you don't have to do it multicoloured. You can do it all one colour if you wish. That'll do. I'm happy with that. I've got 6 strands there. Okay. I'm just going to do one tassel. And then you just got to repeat the same thing for the next one. So let me just put that there a second. Grab the top. Or just push that like that. Right, we're now going to put the tassel onto the tassel tie. Woohoo! So what you're going to do is you're going to take one side of the chain and we're going to go through the bottom. It doesn't matter if it's the first stitch or the second, well I say stitch, the first chain or the second chain. I'm going to go for the second one because I don't want to undo anything. So let's just plonk your plonk your hook through the second chain at the bottom. Right, leave it there like so. Next you're going to get the tassel, and what you're going to do is lay it out just like I've done. I hope you can see that okay in the screen. Lay it out flat like this, and you're going to pinch it and pick it up right from the center like so, and that's going to form a bit of a loop. If you grab it like that, then it's like a bit of a loop, isn't it? That loop now needs to go over your hook, so try and keep the loop open like that. I've got to swap my hands over because I need to do it the other way. Try and keep it center so it's kind of even both sides as best as it can be. Right, now you're going to put your hook through that loop, and we're going to try and gently pull all of these tassels through the second chain. So just give it a wiggle. You've got to make sure that every single bit comes through. Oh, there we go. I've done it there. Lovely. Lovely old job. Right, now we need to make that hook, or the loop at the top a bit bigger. Big enough so that you can fit your forefinger and your thumb back through the loop again. Right through the centre. Make sure you've got all the pieces each side evenly. And what you're going to do now is you're going to grab the ends, including the end from the chain. You're going to grab it, twist it up like this, and pinch it and pull it through the loop like so. Pull it tight. It's going to be a bit tricky. You might have to drop the tail from the chain to pull it tight like so. And then what I do is I just gently go through each strand. Bit annoying, I know, but it helps to just tighten it up and make it look a bit nicer. So I just give each strand a little tug. Don't pull it too hard, because if you do that, then you'll start to pull this end back through here, and then it'll end up so you've got more one side than the other. So just give each one just a little tug. And there we go. And now what we're going to do is just tidy it up a little bit. So it doesn't matter how long you want to have it. Normally if I've got, sometimes I end up with a strand that's a bit shorter than the rest. But to be honest with you, I've done quite good with this one. So yeah, just trim it up wherever you want. I'm going to go about here, get my sharp scissors. There you go. One tassel. So you're going to have to repeat the same for the other side, and then I'll meet you back here when it's done. Ah! It's all done and dusted. Looking a bit dark in here. I do apologise. We've not got good lighting going on, have we? But yeah, it's all done. I just want to say thank you for sticking around again for another tutorial. If you do happen to make one, please be sure to send me a picture. If you're on Instagram, tag me or use the hashtag the Granny Peplum. Yeah, I just love seeing everything that you all make. So thank you so much for sticking around again, and I will see you very soon with another tutorial. Bye.